It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent fritters. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by yet again, coming at you to review a movie from the heyday of, the glorious heyday of horror movies and slashers, kind of resurgence of horror movies and the, birth era, of the slasher genre. That 1980. This movie hails from 1980, and I've got the probably what I would assume is the original VHS in North America. Coming at you to review. I'm not going to review the VHS, but I'm just going to show you this because it's kind of a cool keepsake. Coming at you to review Motel Hell. And here's this is kind of an oversized case. What goes on with this thing is the front actually opens up like that. Back in the early to mid 80s, MGM United Artists Home Video would do this, and it's kind of got like a plastic thing in here where the tape would sit in, and then you'd have cast on this flap, and then the tape there. So that's how the VHS, probably the original VHS for North America of Motel Hell looked. I got this previously viewed probably in 1992 because I saw this for the very first time in 92. I don't think, must have been a mom and pop place. It doesn't have any stickers on it other than just this number, but here's, if not the original, one of the original VHSs of Motel Hell. And, this side is just black with nothing on it. Then on top is like that with the title. Bottom is completely blank, I think, and this spine's got that. So, kind of a cool keepsake. Original VHS from the 80s. So this movie came out in 1980. Very, very important year for slasher movies, of course. You got Terror Train and Friday the 13th among probably a plethora of others in that fantastic year. The Shining as well, which I've already recently reviewed. So Motel Hell is kind of an interesting movie, and it's really crazy because I think this movie, obviously after the fact I've since acquired this movie on DVD, and then it's since come out on Blu-ray with Shout Factory. I never did end up with the Shout/Scream Factory Blu-ray of this movie because I figured I got the DVD, and this isn't really a title that I revisit very often, but every time I do, and I rewatched it recently, because I think I mentioned it in a recent review I did. I can't remember what the hell review it was, but I remember just recently in a review I did, I mentioned, it was the Leatherface 2017 review where the kid wears a big cow head or whatever. It's kind of reminiscent of what ends up happening in the end of this movie. But I never ended up getting the Blu-ray because I don't watch it too terribly much, and I try not to get stuff that, I get so much that I try to really pick and choose choose wisely, if you will. I don't always succeed, but I'd probably get this on Blu-ray if the price was right, $10 or less or something like that. But I don't, it's like I say, it's not something I watch too terribly often, so the DVD does suffice, well enough for me. But it's what's really interesting about this movie, but before I start the review, is it came out in 1980, and when I watched it recently and I watched all the end credits, I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, this movie was actually mixed and released in Dolby Stereo, which is something that is mostly unheard of for a horror movie in 1980. I can't think, even The Shining, but that's because Stanley Kubrick wasn't really interested in doing multi-channel sound because he didn't really have any faith in the theaters to, project in his movie and have the correct sound setup. I think that was the reason. But even The Shining, in the same year, was a mono movie. So I tried to, after I watched this, I tried to rack my brain, and it's just like, what other horror movie from 1980 came out in Dolby Stereo? If you've got any historical data on that and can name any horror movie that actually was released in the theaters in 1980 in Dolby Stereo, feel free to let me know in the comments, because this movie, that shows kind of how big of the budget must have been to actually release this horror movie in stereo. Not hardly, back in the early 80s, not everything, probably only the bigger budget movies were being released in stereo at the time. A lot of stuff probably at the time were coming out in mono, and for this to be come out in, you know, stereo was really, to me, it really means that it must have had whatever, some kind of bigger budget than a normal movie of this genre. But it should also be noted that the music is absolutely fantastic, like the score in this movie, which I think is done in part by the same guy who would either had done just at around the same time or would go on to do rather soon after the score for Happy Birthday to Me, which is a movie I'm pretty sure I already reviewed on this channel. I review so many that it's hard to keep track sometimes. But getting on to the review of the movie, it's kind of a bummer. Basically, the whole idea of the title with Motel Hell is the motel they run in this movie. These are brother and sister. This Farmer Vincent and I think Ida is the more heavy-set sister's name. The motel they run in this movie is by the name of Motel Hello, which actually makes no sense. You know, why would you name a motel Motel Hello? Well, the only reason is so you can have the O at the end of hello be like glitchy and not working, so that way you can have a motel by the name of Motel Hell. They should have tried to maybe come up with a better word than hello. I don't know what else you could really say to make this gimmick work for a sign that ends up with the, you know, spelling of Motel Hell, but whatever. I guess someone could potentially name their motel Motel Hello, like, hello, good to see ya, come and stay with us. But, you know, right off the bat, one thing that I should mention is, unlike, you know, psycho movies or whatever, or even Mountaintop Motel Massacre, a movie called Motel Hell doesn't really revolve around much of the motel aspect of it, meaning it's kind of, I mean, if you're looking for a motel horror movie, it really doesn't dabble in much with hotel patrons, if you will, which isn't a big deal. And I don't think when I saw it when I was originally 15, I think, is when I first saw this. That was the age I was. I don't think I ever really cared or even paid any attention to the fact that there's little to no actually like motel patronage, if you will. For a movie called Motel Hell, it's, you know, got very little motel patronage in the movie, which I guess doesn't really matter. But basically, this Vincent and Ida kind of own this motel slash farm slash whatever. It's a business where basically, it's also like we'll just say motel slash farm, where he, you know, raises hogs and slaughters hogs, and basically also makes this famous within the, you know, I don't know, a certain 100-mile radius area or something, his famous meats or whatever, very much like with the characters of chainsaw movies. But Farmer Vincent's famous meats or whatever, you know, he also, when people leave in the morning from staying at the motel, you know, he'll have gift sets or packages of his meats, smoked meats and stuff that he sells packaged in the lobby, that they can leave the motel stay with the meats or whatever, and beef jerky kind of, you know, things where it's just like, that's good or whatever. So basically this movie's kind of weird in the sense that it begins with basically not showing Farmer Vincent and Ida as being necessarily bad guys at first. It kind of shows, it kind of tries to play around and pussyfoot a little bit, and shows there's an accident with the motorcyclist and, you know, his really younger bride or girlfriend or new wife or whatever the hell is the case with the characters in this movie. At the beginning of the movie, basically Vincent at night, I don't know if people do this at night, I don't know, I'm not a hunter or a hunting enthusiast, but basically Vincent goes out to hunt ducks in the middle of the night, and basically witnesses this motorcycle accident, and the guy is presumed to be dead or whatever, and he takes the young girl back to his place, and kind of they nurse her back to life. Well, what ends up happening is we end up finding out, it's really weird how this movie plays Vincent and Ida as basically just normal people, and slowly throughout the course of the movie where you get more mysterious stuff. You know, they go into the back, you know, take the tractor into the back property and go into this mysterious area of the property when it's just like where weird sounds are coming from, and you kind of get, you know, the idea that the movie starts with them being portrayed normal, but then with weird but normal but what's going on, and then slowly as the movie progresses we see that in fact they are basically what ended up happening actually at the beginning of the movie. We find out later that basically Vincent at night will go out into the road and set up traps to basically blow people's tires out and cause accidents so they can pump gas depending on whatever the accident, situation is, you can pump gas into the car to knock the people out and basically take the bodies. And this kind of doesn't make any sense. We end up finding out that Vincent and Ida basically plant these people in the ground like plants. These are their heads sticking up. And I'm not exactly sure why they do that. They basically, from what I can tell and gather from having just revisited it recently, they plant these people in the ground up to their necks, and they cut out, I don't know if they slice up their vocal cords so they can't yell and scream. I'm assuming that's the reason they because I will say that when the victims after the victims have their throats, their vocal cords cut out or whatever the hell they do to them, the gurgly sounds that they make are really kind of unsettling and kind of whenever a victim who's buried up to their neck tries to, speak or anything, it's just this, I can't even do it, but it's this unsettling sound, I will say. That's maybe in the movie a little too much. But I'm not exactly sure what the actual purpose of putting these people in the ground is up to their necks and cutting out their vocal cords are. Oh, I guess because then they feed them, then they feed them with, maybe they feed them certain stuff for over a period of weeks or months or something like that. And maybe the stuff they feed them, they keep them alive and feed them something. Maybe it's some concoction they feed them which helps turn them into the ideal meat. So basically, at the end of the day, basically, it's very much like Texas Chainsaw, where Vincent and Ida basically kidnapping people, making wrecks happen, kidnapping them, planting them in the ground for some unknown reason, basically just until they're, I guess, feeding them their special concoction of food for however long a time until they're, I guess, deemed ripened or time to pick or whatever the hell they do with these characters. At which time we see them basically put ropes around their necks and put these, psychedelic hypnotic lights in front of their eyes and, just get them all hypnotic so when they kill them by, pulling their necks on the rope with the tractor, it won't hurt or something. It's a lot of kind of we see throughout the course of the movie basically every stage of what they do to these people, capturing them, planting them, and feeding them, and then killing them, and it's just kind of a lot of stuff to have to watch and endure, quite honestly. And upon repeat viewings, it just kind of gets a little maybe in a first viewing it'd be interesting to see these people and what they're doing with their planted people or whatever, but after, repeated viewings it's not too interesting. So while all that stuff's going on, this girl who was way too young for this guy on this motorcycle ends up just we saved you from the wreck. Basically, Vincent killed, we never see this happen, but it turns out to be Vincent killed the boyfriend. He probably didn't die in the accident, he just killed him. I would assume, maybe he did, I don't know. He caused the accident for sure. Whether Vincent killed the boyfriend or he died in the car or in the motorcycle crash, we don't know. But it's just really weird that all of a sudden, this girl just wakes up delirious and towards the beginning of the movie in bed, just I don't know what I'm doing here. And then not long after, she just the next day or a couple of days later, she I like it here. And she starts falling in love with Vincent, who's probably 30 or 40 years older than she is. And I don't know, the movie doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of areas. And then you got this guy who played a cop on the TV show Chips, I think. So you got this goofy guy who played a doofy cop on the show Chips, and now he's playing a doofy cop in this movie. I think he's a younger brother, which is really crazy because this guy is a lot younger than Ida and Vincent. I think he's a younger brother of Ida and Vincent or something. He's got the hots for this blonde, she's got the hots for Vincent, and Vincent seems not interested in her, and it's just, I don't know, whoever wrote this movie, I really didn't necessarily know, in my opinion, what the hell he wanted to do. And it's just, this movie's kind of all over the place. I don't understand why, Vincent just, maybe, I don't know why he didn't just kill her and, they bury her and eat her, or plant her and stuff with, oh no, the boyfriend doesn't die because they plant him. So never mind, the whole thing about the boyfriend dying was a lie because they took him unconscious and they later on plant him and, to be one of the bodies for Farmer Vincent's meat or whatever. So I don't know why they didn't do that with this girl, because it's I I don't know what their interest in like keeping this girl living with them is. I guess it's just an excuse to have like a kind of younger, attractive girl in the movie, and we do see her like topless briefly, I think a couple times in the movie, so that's kind of fun. But this blonde girl who, you know, is in love with Vincent, who Vincent doesn't really care one way about her, is so ditzy and just kind of almost annoying, and at one point it's like they're gonna get married towards the end of the movie, and Wolfman, it should be said that Wolfman Jack has a little bit part in this movie. He was a guy, I don't even know what the hell he did, but I know he was a famous guy, and around this time it was on like American Graffiti records or whatever my dad used to play, or you know, so I know Wolfman Jack and the old kind of raspy voice and stuff. He's got a really big part as like a crooked, you know, whatever, pastor, preacher, like a televangelist or whatever. He's got a really bit part, but Vincent at one point goes to him, and you know, he's gonna marry this blonde ditzy girl towards the end of the movie, and then that just like for whatever reason falls through. Well, throughout the course of the movie, the geeky kind of youngest brother, who's a cop or a sheriff or whatever, or deputy, the guy from Chips, the TV show, throughout the course of the movie, he slowly starts to find out what's going on, and oh my gosh, you know, Vincent is actually basically planting, for whatever reason. We'll just skip all the planting people bit. Basically, at the end of the day, he's taking people. He's setting traps on the road and taking people, and basically turning him into his farm. You know, Vincent's turning these people that he, you know, causes crashes. He's turning these people into Farmer Vincent's meats, basically. And one of the cool, and Vincent actually says this towards the end of the movie, basically his reasoning, which makes complete sense, I might add, his reasoning at the end of the movie for him doing what he does is, well, I see it like this: there's too many people in the world and not enough food. This way we get rid of both problems at the same time. We get rid of people and we have more food. So you can't really argue with that. Not that, you know, not that I'd necessarily be too keen on eating people, but I guess it's really no different than eating any other kind of animal. And for all we know, maybe when we buy meat at the grocery store or wherever, maybe we are eating people. I mean, you never really know what meat you're eating at the end of the day. But that's basically the gist of Motel Hell. It's kind of a movie that's all over the place. It touts itself, obviously, by the title as being maybe a motel horror movie, or a kind of a motel massacre, if you will, by having the word motel in the title. But there's only one scene that involves like people checking in for like a stay. It's actually not it basically turns out to be these swingers who mistake a motel, you know, Farmer Vincent's and Ida's motel as being a swingers motel or whatever. And in a kind of a funny scene where, you know, the guy dresses up in all this funky girl stuff, and the woman's actually kind of hot and got a whip and stuff, and they go in there, Vincent and Ida go into the room and just like give him gas, and it's like one of the famous, there's a lot of kind of like one-liners in this movie, and one of the famous lines that Vincent says before they give him gas is, you smell it and we do the laughing, and it's just one of those kind of, you know, horror movie, early 80s horror movie one-liner kind of things. But that's the kind of movie this is. I mean, it doesn't take itself too seriously. That's what I like about it. It does. I don't think I even mentioned yet that I do actually like this movie as much as I think I've been kind of down-talking it, or, you know, saying problems about it and, you know, stuff like that. I do actually like this movie, and, you know, particularly having kind of grown up with it, it does hold a special place in my heart. But having revisited it, it's nearly like 2 hours long. It's like an hour and 40-something minutes long. Maybe an hour 45. I think it's a little long, to be honest, and doesn't need to be quite so long. Obviously, what ends up happening is the youngest brother ends up finding out everything what Vincent and Ida are doing, and basically comes to the rescue of the blonde bimbo at the end of the movie, and fights his brother. Doesn't mean to kill him, but Vincent, in the climactic, I'm gonna hold on one sec before I get to that. Ida is actually, the people that they're farming somehow break out, or one guy breaks out. I think it's actually the boyfriend of the ditzy blonde at the beginning, or the ditzy blonde who they crash in the motorcycle at the beginning. He actually ends up, you know, wiggling his way out of his hole and gets out and lets all the other planted people out towards the end of the movie, and they kind of, in a zombie-ish kind of a night scene where they're kind of walking like zombies for some unknown reason come out, and basically I think we're led to believe that they attack and kill Ida, and basically Vincent faces off with his brother kind of in the smoke house where all the kind of dead torsos of people are hanging and stuff. Vincent comes out of the back room wearing a pig head and welding a big chainsaw with a big blade, and that's kind of a really cool look, this thing that happens at the end, which of course is all the artwork that is touted now on the frickin', you know, probably subsequent DVDs, and I think the Scream Factory Blu-ray is just pretty much just him with the chainsaw and the pig head. What's really cool about the original artwork, of some of the original artwork, is they don't spoil the pig head thing, which I appreciate. I like this picture on the VHS here. And I like how it doesn't spoil the pig head thing at the end. And even there isn't even a picture of the pig, you know, him wielding the chainsaw wearing a pig head on the back. So that, I really like how they handled it with this VHS release, where they didn't spoil it, because to show that on the cover is kind of a spoiler in a way. It's kind of touts this movie as being just a crazed killer who always just kills people with a chainsaw and wears a pig head. Well, no, that just happens at the end. So I like, you know, basically what I'm saying in a very long-winded way, I like how this is probably, I would imagine, you know, maybe kind of very similar to the original poster art, I would imagine, and I like how they handle it, basically emulating that famous painting from whenever of them two, you know, man and woman farmer or whatever. But that's basically the movie. Like I say, I mean, I don't think I've said this yet, I really love the atmosphere this movie has, and to be honest, the people who play Vincent and Ida are, I really like their portrayal. I love the atmosphere of this movie and the location of like his, you know, farm / motel. The music is absolutely phenomenal in this movie, and you know, the music has a nice chance to breathe with the you know, the stereo track. Unfortunately, the movie is kind of, you know, even on DVD that I have, and it was that way on the VHS, it's really kind of dark and really not very colorful. And then I watched the trailer on the DVD, and the trailer, like the footage in the trailer is all bright and colorful, and it's just like, well, I want to see the movie like that. So I'm not exactly sure why the movie, and both this, you know, VHS version and also the DVD that came out before the Blu-ray, I don't know if the Blu-ray looks that way too, but you know, both versions I have seen of this movie are really, the dark stuff is really dark and really kind of devoid of color saturation and stuff. But I would give this movie 3 stars out of 4 stars. It's probably not a 3-star movie, but I really like the world the movie creates. I think it's kind of one of the more higher budget horror movies of the early 80s. Obviously being mixed in Dolby Stereo kind of says that. Even though some of the stuff doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, I really like the world they create. I really love the atmosphere of the movie, the characters of Vincent and Ida, the geeky, you know, younger brother sheriff guy, and you know, the ditzy blonde, kind of relatively attractive, who we get to see, you know, topless briefly a couple times. I mean, and to see them throughout the movie, you know, continuing to trap people, and there's this van load of like rockers and stuff, I can't remember what the hell, the Terrible Ivans or something like that, who are like driving down the road just being like singing this song, I've had enough, I've had enough, I've had it up to here, girl, I've had enough, I've had enough, I'm up to here with you. It's this song, kind of, you know, obviously early 80s rock song, and it's like, there's a funny one-liner in this movie who's kind of like, the driver's like, I'm wrecked, we gotta find a place to crash, and like moments later they'd get their tires blown out by Vincent, and the van would crash, ha ha ha. But yeah, it's probably not a 3-star movie, but I'll give it 3 out of 4 stars just because I grew up with it. It holds a special place in my heart, and that image of the, you know, Vincent with the, you know, the farmer kind of coveralls or whatever, wearing the pig head, wielding that huge chainsaw is really scary. And in closing, what I will say, I almost forgot, they you know, like halfway through the chainsaw battle with Vincent and his brother, younger brother, they end up adding, you know, Vincent, a laugh from Vincent. It's probably, I don't even know if it's the actor who did this laugh, but the laugh is really kind of scary coming from behind the pig mask, and they kind of have it muffled, the sound of his laughter. It's really kind of scary when he starts laughing as he's, you know, trying to kill his younger brother with the chainsaw. He's like, it's, you know, coming out of this muffled pig head. But anyway, I probably talked about this movie way too much. But as always happens, if there's a movie that I like and have a passion for, that often ends up happening. It's funny how the review kind of started as maybe I didn't necessarily like this movie too much. But yeah, I do hold this movie in kind of high regard, and you know, talking about it obviously does kind of make me interested to know what kind of quality the Blu-ray is, but I'll probably still won't end up getting it for anything over $10. But feel free to let me know what you think of Motel Hell. Maybe you've got the Blu-ray. If you've got the Blu-ray, I would appreciate maybe a brief comment in the comments and share your thoughts of, you know, how the Blu-ray compares to the DVD or the VHS, if you've seen those. Not that I'm necessarily in the market to get the Blu-ray, but I still am kind of curious. That was my impression at blue-ray.com of the review of it, that, you know, the Blu-ray maybe doesn't warrant enough, it isn't enough of an upgrade from the DVD to warrant a purchase, is kind of why I never did, combined with just not really having this movie be something I watch too terribly often. So thank you very much for watching my review of Motel Hell. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.